As the reality of the ultimate sacrifice hits so close to home.
At our house, he is the villain.
Sometimes you just gotta use the right thing.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to That Voiceover Podcast, the show for and about the voiceover industry. I'm Stephen Cox. My guest, Rodney Saulsberry, has been one of the biggest names in the business for over 20 years. Known not just for his extensive work in trailers, but also for a ton of promos, animation, and commercials. Simply put, his voice is everywhere. And he's also published 2 books on voiceover. You Can Bank on Your Voice, Your Guide to a Successful Career in Voiceovers. And his most recent book is Step Up to the Mic, A Positive Approach to Succeeding in Voiceovers. Rodney Saulsberry, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me.
Now, you began as a stage and screen actor, and you talk about this in your book and classes, but what are some of the elements of on-camera acting that you bring to voiceover?
Well, I believe that voiceover is voice acting. And I don't think you can do voiceovers unless you do have an acting ability. And I definitely use everything that I used on television, on stage, on Broadway. I use it when I read scripts. I also believe that music is analogous to voiceover. And my musical background has been very helpful. I feel like when I'm reading a script, I'm singing a song.
Yeah, you've talked about that in your book as well, and I think particularly in promo and trailers, music definitely applies to the cadence and the tempo and the timing of particularly trailers and promos. Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. I think the breathing is the same too, and I think that because I know that the diaphragm is very important, and I know that when I'm breathing and I'm inhaling, my stomach goes out. You know, my pot belly comes into play, and when I'm letting that air out, my diaphragm is coming in, my stomach muscles are coming in and supporting that voice and making sure that it's coming out that mask as opposed to out of my throat and damaging my voice.
That's very technical what you're talking about there, but in terms of sort of bringing the emotional aspect of things to voiceover, that's where the acting comes in, correct?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. You know, the trend today is real people. That's what they're looking for in commercials. And it's the hardest thing to do because we think that as soon as that red light goes on or as soon as somebody says action or it's time to record that we have to go into something. But when you have to be natural, when you have to sound like we're talking right now during this interview, that's tough. It takes an acting technique to be able to do that. It takes emotions. It takes drawing on past experiences to just be natural.
Now, at what point did you make the transition over to voiceover full-time? Because you don't do much on-camera acting anymore, do you?
No. In fact, I stopped doing on-camera for many years. Once voiceover came into my life, I've actually gone back now because my voiceover career went so well. I thought, well, why not go back to acting? And I recently did an episode of a show called Monk.
Sure.
And I also did Without a Trace at the end of last year. I did both of those shows. But I would say that I stopped acting, you know, probably around 93. I got into voiceover and it just took off, and it was no need to continue to do the smaller roles that I was doing. You know, I'd also had some big roles, too. I was a regular on a soap opera, and I did a lot of situation comedies, and I was a guest star on some series that came on in the evening. But voiceover just was something that definitely changed my income, and it turned out that it was what I was put here to do.
There's always a moment where everything comes together for somebody professionally, and I assume that for you that moment was when you did the trailer for How Stella Got Her Groove Back.
Definitely. How Stella Got Her Groove Back was one of my trailers, and I had the entire campaign, and it was the first time, too, that I had been directed, you know, on how to do trailers, and I found out that, again, it wasn't some big, grandiose thing that you do, but just an emotional thing that comes from the heart. And if you're blessed with a voice, which I thank God for, you just let it go. You just let the instrument sort of take care of itself. And, you know, How Stella Got Her Groove Back was a romantic drama, and my voice definitely lends itself to that type of genre.
And there's also an aspect of storytelling, too, that I think you bring to trailers as well.
No doubt about it. I definitely agree with that. You have to be a good storyteller. They call guys that do trailers narrators, and so I'm narrating, in a short amount of time, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds. But you learn through experience the technique that will let you get across that emotion in such a short time.
You have, like you said, the very natural voice, and you say that you're constantly working, even reading cereal boxes in the morning and billboards when you drive. And I have to say, I do that too, and it drives my wife kind of crazy, and I think she thinks I'm nuts. But now I can tell her that Rodney Saulsberry said it's okay. It's all part of the working process, right?
Yes, it is. No doubt about it.
Now, you've put out a new book, as I said. Step Up to the Mic is your latest book. What's some of the territory that you cover in the new book that you didn't cover before?
Well, the first book is a how-to-do book, how to do voiceovers. But the second book is how to do voiceovers with a positive attitude, how to have a career in voiceover with a positive attitude, and how to work with others. So many times we're discouraged when things are slow, and I feel that if you stay positive and do other things while times are slow, other things to promote your career, other things to be better in your career, read more cereal boxes, learn new genres, new techniques. If you're hot in one area, start practicing on another. And it just teaches you how to just be positive. There's a section of the book called Words of Wisdom from the Pros, and I was able to get contributions from people like the late Don LaFontaine, Nancy Cartwright, who's the voice
of Bart Simpson, right? Yeah.
There you go, Bart Simpson, and some other great people, and they all talked about how a positive attitude helped them in their careers and how it helped them be successful. So I think it's really important. If you're having trouble in a session, I had a situation where a young lady was on the phone with me. I was on my ISDN line, and she was in one part of the country, and the engineer was in another part of the country, and she didn't really have script approval. And she was actually calling on her cell phone, talking to her boss, getting script approval and getting lines changed right while we were in that session. Well, because of my book and the way that I feel so, lucky to be in this business and happy to be working, I was a good sport throughout the whole session. She was so impressed with that she decided to give me a gift, outside of the money that I was owed for doing the session. And she actually gave me a certificate for a book from Amazon. And I ordered one of my favorite books. And so I feel that whenever you promote a positive attitude and you are a good sport throughout a session, it really helps define you as a person, and it helps you throughout your career.
You talk about doing things that are proactive while you're waiting for, the phone to ring, you're waiting for your agent to call, and we know how all that goes. You talked a little bit about it, but get into a little bit more of some of the specifics that you encourage people who are been in the business for a while, maybe their booking isn't going too well, and what are some of the things that you can do that are really proactive to kind of get back on track?
Well, I think you have to constantly try to find lists of vendors, trailer houses, promo houses, commercial agents. We're in a time now where you can have more than one agent, especially folks that are working non-union. So you need to be on the Internet. The Internet is a very powerful tool, and it has so many what I call virtual agents on it. So these are people around the country that you can send your demo to and be on their list, and then they can start sending you audition copy. The more we audition, the better chance we have of booking something. And so there are even people in other countries. There are companies in Europe. You can get on their list, and you can be one of their clients and one of their talents. So there's so many things to do. Maybe you can work on your packaging. Maybe you can work on new pictures. It's funny, but a lot of things that were useful for me in the acting aspects on camera have now become important in voiceover.
There's yet another way that your on-camera experience is translated into your voiceover career. You've said that you believe anybody can do voiceover, and I know that you offer a class and that you have the 2 books. What are some of the other things that you tell people specifically when they say, hey, I'd like to maybe get involved in voiceover?
Well, our instincts tell us to tell them to take a voiceover class. Our next instinct says, get voiceover books. And I say, get mine, but get others too. But one thing that we don't say, and I think we should say, is that an improvisation class is good. An acting class is good. Because there are so many times that I use my improvisation skills when I'm doing animation, for instance, or when a commercial script, they allow for me to improvise. And so they're really into people that have those kinds of skills. I also tell people to take a singing class. Again, back to the music. The breathing is the same. When you get into long-form narration, when you get into audiobooks, you had better have some technique if you're going to last through those types of sessions. Video games are big now. And in video games, oh my God, you're taking shots, you're shooting people, you're taking knife stabs, punches, you're in pain. This one show that I'm working on now, I've had to run in place because I'm running through the battlefield.
Yeah.
And they have me for 3 hours. So, it's important to be in shape for this business.
Yeah, I call those video games the screaming grunts, and ideally you get them booked on a Friday so that you have your weekend to kind of recover your voice, because they can be very hard on the vocal cords for sure.
No doubt about it.
Well, Rodney, I really appreciate you joining us on the program, and you've got some wonderful advice for people who are just getting started or people who have been in the business for a while. We will be providing links to your site and as well as to your books as well. But thank you so much for being on that Voiceover podcast.
I sure do appreciate it, and I look forward to doing more with you.
That Voiceover podcast is a co-production of Half Full and Get Creative Inc. Thanks for listening. I'm Stephen Cox.